Great. So I just wanted to welcome you all to the Financial Oversight Committee and just thank you all for the opportunity to help support the vetting process with Greater Iowa City. It was really important to us as a community and economic development agency that we have thriving schools and that everybody knows how amazing our school district is. And so with all of you raising your hand, I can say the nomination committee that reviewed every application was very impressed, very thankful, and I am so grateful to all of you for raising your hand. There will be probably more press around this, as you've seen, just celebrating the next steps, and I know that we would like to celebrate your service. So first, I'm just here to say thank you, and second, I'm here to say that keep your eyes out from emails from Greater Iowa City. You're doing a really important service for our community, and we're so grateful. So, and I'm hand it back to Pat.
Okay. This evening, first place will be just introductions so we can all kind of get to know each other. I'll start first. Pat Moore, CFO, Iowa City School District. I am 2 days shy of my 3 months on the job. I come here from Solon Community School District, serving in that same capacity for 28 years.
Berthina Malone. I am the current board president for the school board.
I'm Nicole Davies. I'm currently the finance director for the city of Iowa City.
I'm Chuck Orr. I'm retired. I was a lawyer and a CPA at one time.
Genevieve Anglin. I'm the grants manager for Johnson County.
Hi, I'm Simon Andrew. I'm the director for the Housing Fellowship.
Good evening, everyone. Amy Courtmeyer, interim superintendent.
Hi, I'm Dustin Gui. I am an analyst for Collins Aerospace and a graduate of the school districts here. So.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Kristen Peterson. I'm the Executive Director of Community Relations, going on my 19th year with the district, I think. So.
Kurt Pratt, Chief Operating Officer. Been here since April 25. Not on the committee, but just attending.
And I am Kim Colvin. I am the board secretary, and I'm in my 28th year here at the district. So, and we probably want to have Charlie and Jeffrey introduce themselves as well.
Yeah, I'm Charlie Plunk, retired from Midwest One, where I spent 22 years, and retired from 47 years in commercial banking. And I will say, maybe at the other end of the table, I'm having a hard time hearing. I don't know about Jeff, but it was hard to hear.
Probably gonna have everybody speak a little bit louder because it is all just mostly projecting through my computer. So I've got it all the way.
Charlie, it'd be good to have people speak up a little bit. But Jeff Albright, lifelong resident of Iowa City, graduate from the Iowa City School District, and chairman of Yanmar America and executive director of Yanmar Global Company.
Perfect. First thing we'll do tonight, everybody's probably read it when you signed up with your application, read through the charter. You're just going to go through a few things, and then we'll move on to the next order of business, which will be naming a chairperson of the committee. And the chairperson of the committee will move this into, take over the meeting, lead us into nominations for the vice. We'll go into the Iowa Association of School Business presentation, and then we'll set the meeting for the next time, what we're going to discuss, and then we'll adjourn for the evening. That being said, I'm just going to flip through a couple of things on the charter here.
I would if you need to move closer so they can hear you better.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Can't hear it all.
Yep. Hopefully this will help. Let us know.
Hopefully you can hear better now. Is this better?
Yes.
Good.
Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to go through a few items on the charter. We're going to start about the purpose of the committee. It's assisting the full board carrying out fiduciary responsibilities under Iowa law, including the Iowa Constitution and applicable statutes, providing published assurance that the district funds are expended only for legitimate public purposes and not for private personal gain, providing independent, informed oversight of the district's financial conditions, reporting, internal controls, and long-term sustainability, enhance transparency, accountability, and public confidence. As far as accountability for the board, provide regular updates and recommendations to the Board of Education, submit an annual summary of what we've done here in this committee, and recommendations made to any necessary changes to the board. And as a reminder, all final authority does rely with the Board of Education. As I alluded to before, we'll have a committee chair and a vice chair, which we'll deal with here in a moment. Responsibilities of the committee, quite a few of them: statutory financial oversight, financial reporting and transparency, budget and financial planning, audit oversight, internal controls and risk management, compliance and ethics, policy review, and lastly, committee of effectiveness. So we'll take a look at ourselves after a year and make sure we're doing what we need to do. And every 3 years, the charter would be updated if need be and reviewed by the board. Process is we have 7 community members. We have 2 ex officio board members. Board President Ruthina Malone and Director Lingo is absent this evening, and I serve as ex officio as well. One thing, last piece, annual work plan, I think, as it talks about each season, which could lead into our next agenda as far as fall. Financial condition and risk review, winter audit review and financial reporting, which is very timely because we're going through the 25 audit right now. We'll be into the 26 by that point in time. Spring, budget development and audit planning, and late spring, final budget review and annual reporting. With that being said, I think it's probably time to move to if there would be a nomination for someone to serve as chair of this committee. Would anyone like to nominate someone?
You can do self-nominations, so don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Oh, come
I nominate Charlie
What's involved with
Funk.
being chairman?
on. Okay.
What's involved with being chairman?
Go over here, we'll read it.
Back of page 1, Pat.
What?
Yeah.
Back of page 1. Second page.
There we go. Primary responsibilities of the chair include providing consistency in financial oversight activities, coordinating committee work and annual planning, reporting to the board as requested, facilitating committee meetings, and ensuring agendas, material, and follow-up actions are appropriately managed. The vice chair duties, facilitating committee meetings when the chair is not present, and represent the committee and carry out the duties of the chair when the chair is not able to do so.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question.
I would nominate Charlie Funk.
You have a second?
Second.
Great. Any other nominations? Everyone in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, nay.
Yep.
We officially have a chairperson. Mr. Chair, the meeting is yours.
I think I heard that I was chair, is that?
You are correct. Congratulations.
Maybe I should put my hearing aids back again. Well, I guess, I don't have an agenda in front of me, but I think the next thing would be to nominate a vice chair.
Correct.
And I guess the floor would be open for nominations.
I'd be happy to.
Simon said he'd be happy to do that.
Second?
Second.
And who was that?
Simon, Andrew, I don't know if you can hear me at this end of the table.
Did you catch that, Charlie? Simon volunteered and Genevieve seconded the nomination for
Good.
Simon.
Any other nominations? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We have a vice chair. And I believe, is the Iowa Association of School Boards, is that the next agenda item?
It is,
That's correct.
Very good.
and this could be a drag.
We will turn it over to, I think Jan is online, and I'm sure we'll be able to hear you very well. The floor is yours.
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfectly.
Okay, let's see. Right.
No, I don't know if she. Jan, do you have sharing rights?
Yeah, can you see
Perfect.
that?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this. I didn't know if I did, but it works, so that's good. All right. Okay, so I am Jan Miller-Hook, School Finance Director for the Iowa Association of School Boards. You have contact information right there. I also included Mike Guanci. He's not here tonight, but I wanted to make sure that you had both of our contacts, so if you have any questions as you go along, and we'll be seeing you next week as well. So I wanted to make sure you had both names and all of our information. So we're going to talk about Dillon's Rule tonight, funds, spending authority, building blocks, fiscal management policy and regulation, and a little finance committee overview, but it sounds like you may have had that, so hopefully it's not too redundant for you. So you can't talk about school finance without talking about Dillon's Rule. So this is, I would judge Dillon back in the 1800s is what it was established on. And what it says basically is the school district can only do what's expressly authorized in law or code, as opposed to home rule, which cities and counties operate under. And for the most part, they can do whatever they need to do for their operations as long as it doesn't violate the law. Then in 2016, during the legislative session, there's a new law that allows district to exercise any board and implied power not inconsistent with the law. And you'll hear that referred to as home rule light. But what does it really mean? There was no constitutional change. So for the most part, we believe we still operate under Dillon's Rule. So advice would be if there's something that a board is going to push that envelope in a gray area, just make sure that you consult legal first, would be a good idea. So finance. Dillon's Rule, we have lots of funds because of that. And each one of these funds pretty much has a specific focus and what it can be used on. And they always use the analogy, you can't mix corn and beans because, you know, we're a farming state. But it's pretty much the same in school finance. They don't mix very well. So on this chart, for the first, past the first half of the page, you can see all the governmental funds. And in the middle, it has the fund and a short description, revenues on top, and then expenditures. I did insert your dollar amounts just so that you had some kind of a reference. But it's based on FY25, because as you probably know, FY26 is not in the books yet. They're working hard on that, and they won't certify until middle September. So general fund, the first one, is your operating fund. And I don't know if you can see my pointer, hopefully.
Yep.
So that's where you have the revenues. It's a property tax, income surtax, which your district does have income surtax for your instructional support levy, state aid, grants, whether they be other state grants, federal grants, miscellaneous income, such as donations, interest income, open enrollment in, all those kinds of things are miscellaneous. And then your expenditures, we're a people business, and this is the operating fund, so the largest expenditures are in salaries and benefits. And then you also have purchased services. You have materials, supplies, transportation. And for you, when you're looking at salary and benefit costs, some of your salary and benefit costs are actually in that purchase service because I believe you still outsource transportation. And then the next fund over is student activity fund. So this one is anything related to co-curricular or extracurricular. So your clubs, your athletics, etc. Your revenues, admissions, activity fees, student fees, fundraising. There are that one transfer that can happen for athletic protective equipment. And then your expenditures, anything basically that is in relation to your athletic accounts or your club accounts, co-curricular. Then your next one over is management fund. This one is primarily for your insurance, not health related. So your property tax is a revenue, also insurance claim proceeds if you have a claim. And then your expenditures would be all the different insurances other than your health and dental insurance for your employees. So all of those listed there. Also, arbitration can be taken out of management, mediation, and then of course your claim transfer if you have one. Then next over, you have a capital project, your physical plant equipment levy, which is used for infrastructure, maintenance, repair, equipment, capital costs, your computers, things like that. Revenue, property tax again, income surtax. Your district does not have income surtax for your physical plant equipment levy though. And then expenditures, anything that's purchased, improvement of grounds and buildings, construction, building lease, technology, buses, equipment. And then if you have what's called a PEPAL note, where you have debt that is funded by PEPL, then a transfer gets made as an expenditure out of this account into the debt service fund. Because in school account, only the debt service fund can actually make a principal and interest payment. Then our next one over is the SAVE fund, which is your sales tax. And it's similar to fiscal plant equipment levy as far as what its usage is. Your revenue is sales tax, and then if you sell any revenue bonds. So similar to PEPL, if you do have revenue bonds, then the expenditure is a transfer out of there for principal and interest and goes into that debt service fund. The other expenditures would be your capital projects, and then again, anything that's basically listed under your PEPL purpose, your fiscal plant equipment levy purpose.
Jan?
And yes.
Could I stop you, because I'm sure this question's on everybody's minds.
Okay.
How do we have $19 million in proceeds and $56 million in expenditures? Is that normal, or is that, I mean, I'm sure everybody's wondering that, or maybe it's just me.
Oh, okay, sure. I didn't look specifically, but generally what I tell you is you probably already sold red bonds in previous years, and you have that money available for some construction costs. So your only revenue coming in, probably at this point, is your sales tax revenue only, but you still have a fund balance for those additional costs.
That's correct, Jan. I believe 2023 was our last SAVE revenue bond sale.
Okay, very good. Good question.
I also have a question on the athletic protective equipment transfer. What does that mean?
So if you have equipment protective equipment purchases, then you can actually transfer that into the general fund. Vice versa, general fund and the student activity fund can be used for a transfer. Or it can just be paid directly to that fund and stay there, either one. It's just something that was added, flexibility. I don't know, it's been several years ago now that was added.
Okay, thank you.
So that's a very small piece of it. Okay. And then debt service, I kind of already explained that. Property tax, because if you have a debt levy, and then your transfers in coming from either PEPL or sales tax or both, if you have PEPL notes and revenue bonds. And then your expenditures would be the principal and interest payments. And then lastly over here we have PEARL, which your district doesn't have, and that has been taken away, that ability to receive the PEARL, so we won't even talk about that one. Lower left is the proprietary fund, also known as enterprise funds. So for the most part, it's going to be your nutrition fund. And your revenues, federal, state, meal sales. If you have like a non-voluntary preschool in your proprietary or maybe community ed, then you're going to have fees that are assessed, and that would be part of your revenue. Expenditures, again, nutrition fund, food service, breakfast and lunch costs, and then if you have those other expenditures for child care and community ed, they will come out of here as well. Then your other proprietary in the middle, internal service fund, is going to be your self-insured health and dental. And then over your expenditures, it's just, whatever your claims are that you're paying out will come out of that fund. And if you have department chargebacks. Department chargebacks, this is a little different. Not every district, in fact, there are only a few districts that actually do it. But that internal service fund would be if you're operating like a print shop and then charging those costs back, it does operate as an internal service fund as well. And then over to the right, we have the fiduciary fund, and that would be if you have like a trust fund, have scholarships, etc. So that's going to be your revenue source. And then, of course, scholarships would be your expenditures. So those are your funds. And like I said before, they pretty much have to be used for the specific purpose. There is some flexibility that has been given to districts to use when they have certain fund balances. And that was done legislatively. But for the most part, the legislative, they want the funds to be used. They want those categorical balances to be used. And to help facilitate that, they did get some flexibility. So this is just a quick chart that you can keep handy at a glance and see on that first column are all the funds that a district might have with a short description next of that fund. And then the actual code in Iowa that authorizes that fund to exist. And then there's a short description of the major revenue sources and the major expenditures.
Jan, this is Amy Courtmeyer. Can you go
Yes.
back to either of the previous two slides? And on the management fund, will you talk a little bit about early retirement there and why that's kind of an important piece that we can utilize the management fund for and when we might pull that lever?
Sure, okay. So management fund can be used for early incentives, which aren't necessarily your total early retirement. But early incentive would be like if you want to have teachers notify your district by a certain date in December or January that they're going to be leaving, and if any of those actually fall under the requirements for early retirement, you could take those against early retirement and use the management fund as well. And then the early retirement incentive is when you're looking at and saying, okay, we're going to offer the early retirement incentive, and the district, it depends on what district's philosophy is, who that's offered to. Some districts, it's only to certified staff, your teachers. And then they'll have a specific date. They might take it to the board. Well, you have a finance committee now, so I'm just going to tell you from my experience. I would always take the early retirement, and actually we had a policy that said it would go to finance committee first. And so I would discuss it there at finance committee. And then once that was determined, then we would go forward and take it to the board. And usually that was in December when we would take that to the board, and then with the dates, that they had to submit it by, et cetera. But yeah, and then again, it depends on the district what that calculation is. You might have some of that information in your policy. I'm not sure, I didn't look at that. But that's pretty much how it works. And then if they qualify, if they're at a certain age, and they fulfill the requirement that you have as a district, you might say as a district that they have to have 10 years experience as an example. So if they qualify, then those expenditures under early retirement can be taken out of the management fund.
Yeah, and then I would
Does that help?
Yeah, I would just add that in times of hard budget times, that incentive is utilized so that we're recognizing our veteran staff. And then if we are to hire behind them, of course, that's typically for somebody that's maybe less expensive. And so we use that as a budgetary aspect to help with the general fund.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of districts would use that as a budgetary, and they're not replacing some of those positions even, especially in smaller districts. And I'm having trouble hearing you. I hope that you are hearing me well.
It is hard to hear.
Yes. Can you hear me well though?
Yes, we can.
We hear you, Jen.
Okay, good. All right. Okay. So we'll go on to spending authority. It's a really important concept. It's the law. It's more important than cash. And the whole reason before it is to provide funding equity so that every student, no matter where they live in the state of Iowa, has equal access to funding. It is the #1 measure of financial health. We have 7 financial health indicators, and this is the most important. The other one that I'd say is real close to it would be certified enrollment, only because it's the major driver in the funding formula. So spending authority only applies to the general fund, none of the other funds. It's a legislative concept. It's a calculation by the Department of Management. Typically, you won't find it in your audit report unless it's in the management discussion and analysis. That's written by management, typically by your school business official. And we have seen a couple audits that have it in there, but for the most part, you won't see it in the audit. The auditors don't look at spending authority. However, it's still important to districts. It establishes the maximum amount that a district can spend, and about 80% is generated through the school aid formula. If it's overspent, it's a negative unspent balance, total spending authority, negative unspent balance, a violation of the law, and that district wins a trip to the school budget review committee. A lot of work, a lot of documents that have to be provided. You can overspend cash, although it's, it has its own set of problems, but you cannot overspend your spending authority. So I like this chart. For me, it just depends on what you like, whether you like a chart or if you like kind of the storyline, and I'm going to show you both. So this one shows spending authority versus cash, and on the left side is spending authority, all the different sources of spending authority. So the first one being regular program district cost, and that for the most part is just your certified enrollment times district cost per pupil. And then you have your supplementary weighting, some of those examples like concurrent enrollment, shared positions, etc. Both of those, regular program, supplementary weighting, the source of revenue is state aid and property tax. So you're getting spending authority for both of those, and then you're getting the revenues through a combination of state aid and property tax. Special ed district cost, same thing. You receive authority, and then that revenue is both state aid and property tax. The next four listed there are all categoricals. So they fall within the general fund, but they carry their own fund balances at the end of the year if there's still monies available. Teacher salary supplement, professional development, early intervention, and teacher leadership. All four of those, revenue source would be state aid. There's no property tax in those categoricals. AA support is both state aid and property tax. And then we have SBRC modified amounts. And that's the School Budget Review Committee. So those are those instances where the district asks for MSA, which is additional spending authority. And it's for where a district has already spent the funds, and an example would be your special education deficit. And Iowa City has a large special education deficit. You're spending a lot of money that you haven't received the spending authority for. So the district does make a district whole with those excess special education costs, but there's no cash with it. It's only spending authority. And there are other instances like excess EL costs, your language learner costs, increased enrollment, etc. Preschool foundation aid is another categorical, and that one is state aid revenue. Instructional support authority, so your ISL is both income surtax and property tax, and it is both of those sources for your district. Other districts, it might just be property tax, but it can be property tax or a combination. And then Ed Improvement Authority, there are only a few districts that have that are still grandfathered, and your district's not one of those. Other miscellaneous income would be any revenue that's not state aid or property tax. So your tuition in, for example, would be a large one, interest income, etc., is in that other miscellaneous income. And then unspent authorized budget previous year. So it carries over. If you have UAB at the end of the year, which you want to have UAB at the end of the year, that carries over to the new year as your beginning balance. But you don't receive any additional cash. It's just part of the balance that you can use. And then finally, the cash reserve levy, the bottom one on the right-hand side. You get cash for that when you levy it, but there is no spending authority associated with it. It's very necessary. You need cash reserve levy for cash flow at the end of the year, end of the fiscal year. Even though state aid is now being paid starting in July, this was our first year, you still don't receive property tax till September. So it's very much needed for that purpose, plus any of your excess costs, such as your special education deficit. You need cash reserve to help put those funds back in place that you've already spent.
And then, does that get paid back then when property taxes come in?
It does, your cash reserve levy, sure.
Okay.
And the district's managed tax rates are how that happens, but yes, it is a property tax. So this is kind of the story way of looking at it. The charts just, you look at one page, and this is a story. So in the top half, you see the blue and the gray. So this is your sources providing both spending authority and revenue, which is cash, so that you can see under the different categories. State aid and property tax, you have your regular program, your supplementary, special ed, and your AA support. Under state aid, you have your categoricals listed there. Under property tax only, the AA education and media service, dropout prevention, and then budget guarantee. And then property tax and income surtax, your ISL, and then miscellaneous income. Things to remember, SBRC modified amounts, that additional spending authority that you receive for those certain unique circumstances, is only spending authority. No cash comes with that. Previous year unspent is just spending authority, no additional cash, and your cash reserve levy is cash only. and no spending authority. And then just a little deeper dive. Again, regular program district cost is your certified enrollment times district cost per pupil. Supplementary examples, concurrent enrollment, shared positions, and then you have your special ed and listed there. Your state aid, your categoricals are listed there. Again, they have specific purposes, but there is flexibility. There's what's called a flexibility account, and there are 4 of those categoricals that can be used. But that takes a hearing and a resolution, and then providing that information to the Department of Ed. And then the most current was not this last year, but the year before, when they added the flexibility for TSS transfers, where there are 3 funds. One of those that isn't listed there is gifted and talented, that can be used for transfers to teachers' salary supplement. But the thing is, it's still, all of these are still categoricals. If you have ESA students, that are going to non-public, you do receive some funding for those students. It's roughly about $1,600, and it comes in as a categorical as well. All right, so just a few concepts here that we have. We've talked about UAB in the middle. That's that percent of your remaining spending authority, kind of like your credit card limit at the end of a fiscal year. We recommend 5 to 15%, not to exceed 25, but it does depend on a district. And why I say that is, why we say 5 to 15, a district might want to be close to 25%, and especially like a small district that's declining enrollment, because that changes so very quickly. But when we look at all districts, we say, okay, globally we think 5 to 15%, not to exceed 25. And when you're looking at your UAB, your trends, you're looking at, okay, is it stable? Are we growing to a point where we're going to be too large because now we have a new directive from the last legislative session? Or is it going downward and budget adjustments need to be made?
Jan, this may not be a
Okay.
question for you, but what were we at the end of the prior fiscal year?
Your UAB was
Yeah.
2.3%
2.3%?
in FY25.
Thank you.
And we're going to talk about that. Another key measure that's not listed here that Iowa City is very familiar with is UAB, net of restricted categoricals. And what that means is the legal concept is total spending authority, which includes any balance of your restricted fund balances. So only if that's negative do you violate the law. However, when you take your total spending authority and you reduce it by your categoricals, if you become negative, you still win that trip to the School Budget Review Committee. And I know Iowa City has had to do that. And the whole premise there is, they want the categoricals to be used, plus, your spending authority basically is just holding on because of those balances and the restricted funds. So that's another category that you're going to be using in your fiscal management policy. And then we have on top is your solvency ratio. So that's more kind of on the cash side, is that percent of revenue basically at the end of a fiscal year. We recommend 7 to 17%, not to exceed 25. We used to be 5 to 15%, and about 3 years ago, maybe 4, bond rating companies wanted to see a higher percentage. So it did get increased to 7 to 17. And that's, so that you can manage your short and long-term needs, but also, bond rating companies, if you're going out for bonds, that's an important indicator to them. And then the third one that's down on the bottom, the annual unspent spending authority, what that means is on any given year, what's the amount of spending authority that you are receiving? How much of that are you spending? If you have your UAB percentage, basically your goal, if you will, where you want it to be, then you want to be spending almost all that spending authority every year, because it's really meant for the kids while they're there. However, if you're spending more, then that is problematic, and that's when you start seeing your UAB percentage decline. Okay, so fiscal management policy and regulation. Your district does have a policy and the regulation. The whole premise of the fiscal management policy is recognizing the board has a fiduciary responsibility, that you need to learn about district finances, and you need to be looking at the financial trends, because it's really hard to know where a district is going if you don't know where it's already been. Committing to annual financial goal setting, and this actually has become kind of interesting. It became a mandate then in the last legislative session that, yes, you need to have goal setting every year, but you also now need to publish in your minutes view of those goals on an annual basis. And I say it's interesting to me because I've been at this for 5 years, and when I first started, I was at districts telling them that they needed fiscal management, and I would send the policy. And then I went back and I found out that we as ISB didn't have one. I was just used to having a policy and reg. So we put it out there, and now the legislature has actually put more teeth into it, if you will. So you are going to have to review those goals on an annual basis and make sure that they're published in the minutes. And then the district's philosophy regarding when you go after additional spending authority. So having it just spelled out. So what the board says is basically we are recommending that the district management go for spending authority when there's a special education deficit, when there's an English language deficit, and then finally that last bullet, basically when there's an opportunity to do so. That's been kind of the philosophy of districts, because you didn't have a crystal ball, you didn't know what was going to happen to the future in your district, and you wanted to make sure and protect them as much as possible. We will see that changing just a little bit as they, put that top 35% calculation for some districts. They'll get caught up in that when they won't always be able to get that spending authority. So policy and regs still, you need to be looking at a minimum. And for your district, you have in there 5 years. So you're should be looking at 5 years of data. And probably, I don't know, sometime in the fall, my practice was basically October-ish, looking at that information. So 5 years of total revenues and expenditures by fund and major sources, and then the financial indicators, the financial solvency ratio, the UAB net of those restricted fund balances, or categoricals, same thing, and your enrollment trend for 5 years, and then what your staff costs look like as a total percentage of your general fund costs. We didn't talk about that one, but typically we look at 75 to 82% of total general fund costs for salary and benefits. For your district to do a calculation, you would have to add in cost of outsourced transportation, because it's not paid out as salary and benefits, it's paid out as a purchased service. So that would just be an additional calculation to see where you're really falling in your total staff costs and expenditures.
Are there, 2 questions, enrollment trend is a backward-looking 5-year moving average? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, that piece of it is 5 years history for all those pieces.
And then the last
But
one,
then,
the last point you had was, are there indices in the state that have staff costs as a percent of total general fund costs? Is there something we have a reference, or there is a published number to compare to? Staff costs if you look at staff costs as a percent of total general fund costs, is there something to compare to?
it should be in the realm of 75 to 82% of your total general fund costs, but you're going to have to do the extra calculation, because salary and benefits won't capture your true people cost, because, and this is kind of accounting, but it's called a purchase service, which captures object codes in the 3, 4, and 500s instead of being in the 1 and 200s of salary and benefits.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jan, let me tag on to that, to Jeff's question. In your experience, do most of the large districts fall between 75 and 82%?
Oh, I haven't really done that kind of a comparison. I would think they probably would, but again, I don't think that we would typically have that, because several of the large districts do outsource transportation, and we haven't put that kind of a calculation out there anywhere. I don't think in our history.
Charlie,
Okay,
this is
thank
Pat.
you.
Charlie,
I
this
mean,
is
it's not that it couldn't be done. I just don't think of it.
Charlie, this is Pat. I'm looking at the information from ISB. It's actually a download for 25. Without the transportation in there, it shows, I think, 84.1, and I think on our website we have it at 86, so I'm assuming that probably pulls in the transportation piece.
Thank you.
All right, you're not looking at our stuff, right? Or are you?
Yeah, Jan, I'm actually looking at the ISB right now. It's 25 is 84.1, so I assume if we pull in our transportation, we'd be probably 85, close to 80. I think we have 86 listed on our website, so I think we're probably high 85,
Oh, okay,
which is actually high.
Yeah, a little high. Okay. All right, and then, so we talked about the history part, and then also you need projections, and you have mentioned you want 5 years, which is good, because if you do go before the school budget review committee, as you know, they do want 5-year projections. We know that the first 3 years, most viable, that's your best information, but it is good to have 5 years. It helps the district not to be so reactive and be making those adjustments as you go along. So I did this, your financial metrics that you have, your UAB, your policy shows 5 to 10%. Your UAB net restricted, you have 0 to 5%, and then solvency 10 to 15%. And your solvency, I believe, was 6% at the end of fiscal year 25. And again, fiscal 26 is still being worked on. Okay. Oh, one thing I didn't mention on fiscal management policy. Another change legislatively was that it always had in there that monthly financials had to be on the board agendas. And that is the law, basically, and it's real simple. It's just beginning balance, revenues, expenditures, ending balance. However, the new fiscal management policy requires monthly financial statements as well as investment portfolio information, financial performance information, and what that means is, it depends what you decide to look at. It might be comparing where you're at to certified budget, or comparing where you're at to prior year, comparing where you're at to your working or what's called your line item budget. So that would be your financial performance that would need to be on a monthly basis. So that's an addition. And, I say that, but I would also don't take it completely literal, even though it's supposed to be monthly. You probably aren't going to see that in July and August when the books haven't closed, because school districts are legally required to keep everything open for 2 months, so they're still working back to prior year. But going forward, once you get to that closure September and on, you should see monthly all those pieces of information. At this point in time, too, when I mentioned about having to put into your minutes your review of the financial goals, it doesn't have to be sent into the DE or anything. However, I do think, and others do think too, if you go before the school budget review committee in the future, we imagine that they're going to be asking that as part of your documentation. Okay, so the next thing I have for you is your spending authority building blocks. So this is kind of looking simplistically at the formula. In the gray, that is everything on the left side, spending authority, making up what's called the combined district cost components. So total regular program makes up the largest piece, all right? That's basically certified enrollment times district cost per pupil. And then you have your weightings, your special ed weightings, your supplementary weightings, remember, like concurrent, shared positions, etc. Your state categoricals, all those that we listed, AA flow through and dropout prevention. So all of those you receive spending authority for and make up combined district cost. Then you have the preschool formula, that your voluntary preschool, your ISL, your school budget review committee extra that you've received spending authority for those unique situations. And really, special ed deficit isn't unique. There are many, many districts with deficits. Miscellaneous income, basically anything that's not state aid or property tax. And then, of course, your previous unspent balance. All of those are components of your spending authority. And then on the right-hand side, you have your revenue sources. So you have your state aid and your uniform levy, and together those make up what's called the foundation level, which is now 88.4%. You have your additional levy, state, and then your state aid, local tax, cash reserves, state, federal, et cetera, on top. That's just kind of an easy way to look at the building blocks. So I took a look at your finance committee and pulled some of the stuff. I saw that you talked about statutory financial oversight, reporting and transparency, budget and financial planning, audit oversight, internal controls and risk management, compliance and ethics, policy review. So then I just put out some examples, and I'm guessing Patricia's probably already talked some about that, but examples might be new things coming to the district. Storm protection fund was a new thing in the last last year or the year before. So that might have come to the finance committee before it went to the regular board. Or if you're just for the first time getting breakdown insurance, any new opportunities. Talking about your meal rates, your student fee rates, large or unique contracts such as outsourced transportation, laptop purchases, requests for proposals, etc. Your financials, financial health indicators, your projections, your audit, early resignation incentives and early retirement incentives, a budget timeline, because you're probably going to talk some about the budget, assumptions. Those assumptions are really important to start with the finance committee and for the board, full board, to also have buy-in to the assumptions that you're using in those 5-year projections, your budget parameters, construction projects. And it kind of depends. Some districts use the finance committee for this purpose. Some districts will have what's called facilities or physical environment committees that take on the construction type of activity or the capital plans, but can be done through finance committee as well. And then before we get to questions, I did want to mention that we have a lot of online resources that can also help you. We have online sources for reviewing the audit report, monthly financial best practices, questions to ask when reviewing monthly financials. We have a budget calendar that it's not set in stone, but it's a nice, easy guide that you can look at each month what you should be asking for or what you should be seeing that's being brought to either the committee or to the board. Anyway, there's just a plethora. And if there's something that you don't see, I would say reach out to one of us, to Mike or I, because sometimes things are just hard to find, and we'll do the research and we'll find it for you. So at this point, I would open it up to any questions.
I have 2 questions, sorry.
Okay.
Solvency ratio, I understand the numerator is unobligated cash. What's the denominator? Is that total budget? Total spending?
It's revenues minus AEA flow through. I can send that to you. We've talked a little bit about that one because of the changes that have happened, but so far we've talked to the Department of Ed too. So far we haven't made any changes to it.
Oh, the solvency ratio, okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how you get to the percentage. But yeah, if you have anything you can send.
Yeah, I'll put that in a note to Patricia.
And the second question is, how do we access those online resources? Do we have to have a login?
Yes, you do. And if you don't have a login, you can, Jeff Rorick is our person that puts those on, but if you send to me, if you don't have a login, I can forward them on to Jeff and get you into touch with that.
Isn't that the same site where we took the test?
What test?
The training for this committee?
It wasn't. That was AEA online. It's different.
Okay, all right.
Cool. Okay, so it's in Janet. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then there's one other thing I would mention, that the day before convention, we have what's called Finance 101, 201, and 301. They're like 2.5-hour sessions. So that might be something that you, as board members, especially on the finance committee, might want to participate in. So November 18th would be that date. It's just the day before the regular convention.
Does anybody else have questions? Going once, going twice? Okay, Jan, thank you. That's a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
That's a lot
Jan.
to absorb.
It is. We tried to keep it pretty simple. We didn't go really deep, but, you know, it's just a lot of stuff. School finance is rather unique.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I guess I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Oh, no, just the board members. I'm sorry. I'll see them next week.
So Kim, where are we on the agenda now?
I think we're talking about our next meeting.
Yeah, well, I wanted to talk about that. I mean, clearly, I think we need to meet more than 6 times a year, which is the minimum. And I just wonder how everybody feels about that. It seems like there's a lot we have to get our arms around, and we probably need to spend some time together. What do you think, other members?
I would agree. I think there's a lot of new things for many of us to try to understand and talk through. It'd be good to meet, at least at the beginning, a little more.
It seems to me that the chair and perhaps the vice chair are going to have to work closely with Pat, our CFO, and Pat, maybe you and I could get together, and I really think, you know, given the fact there's so much interest in this committee and the public, I think expects us to, you know, have our foot on the accelerator. You know, maybe we ought to meet again in a couple of weeks, and we'll send something out, but perhaps you and I should meet first if that's agreeable with you and the other members of the committee.
I'm absolutely great with that. I'm getting a lot of shaking heads here, so I think we're good with that. That would be great.
Very good. Well, more to come. And Kim, are you our contact for administrative things for the committee?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Well, let's set a meeting with Pat and me, and Jeff, if you can join us, anytime you can join us, that would be great.
Perfect.
We'll make sure you're invited.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I think we all recognize this is a heavy lift, and I think we all recognize that the community's put a lot of trust in us, and it's up to us, you know, to give 100% and understand. I see that I've already gotten a couple of emails based on this meeting. I saw they popped up on the screen. So there's obviously a lot of interest here. We just need to be able to do the best we can and be able to explain the rationale for our decisions. And the clearer we can make that, the better. And I also think we have to understand there are going to be some recommendations that are very hard to make because they're painful. But that's the reality of it. And I think everybody who volunteered for this committee understands that, given the backgrounds that I see. So we'll meet again in a couple of weeks, if not before, and we'll try to give you plenty of notice. And Pat, you and I, and perhaps Jeff, can get together in the next week. That would be great.
Sounds good.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the cause? Kim, why don't you, if you would, give us some calendar indication, calendar emails, and we can figure out when we're going to meet.
Sounds great.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, and we will declare this meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for your time tonight, everyone.